I'm beginning the recording. Let's see. This is Stephen Smith. This is the regularly scheduled class of 2309. The day is June 12th, 2018, and we are now in Module 5, Chapter 3. By this time, you should have done or will be doing quickly on your, it should be on your front burner anyway, to do modules 3 and 4. They're fairly easy. The big thing that we're looking at there is how do tables get created and how do foreign keys get established. And I will let you go to that. I'm willing to do a lab session at another time than these lectures. Right now, I'm going to move into Chapter 3. Chapter 3 begins on, I don't know what page that is. Section 2, Essential SQL Skills. I'll get the page number here. Oh, it's about page 86 in the textbook, and it's running up through about page 120. So that is the reading. Now, I've skipped a couple of pages in there, but we'll manage with it. So the first thing in a database script is your name and what is this thing that you're doing. So this one is Module 5. When you do your exercises, it'll look kind of like this, but it'll be your own name, of course. And we will start with use AP underscore DB. This is our production database. Now, if you hose the thing, that's fine. All you have to do is recreate it, run that create AP SQL. It's pretty easy and it'll all come back. Okay, we're going to look at what we call the select from where statement. So select what fields, from what table, where what condition. We'll go order by later. Now, for the moment, I'm going to step over to my graphical user interface. And if you do not see it up there, if you do not see the Object Explorer up here, that's fairly easy to handle. You go to View. See View, View, Object Explorer, and here it is. This is your graphical user interface. I can drop down this guy and I can see my databases. There's AP, there's Scratch. I can see other stuff, but we're not going to worry about the other stuff right now. Right now, we're only worried about databases. So let's drop down APDB. What do I see? I see one that says tables. Let's look at the tables. The tables that we have are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 tables. Mostly right now, we're going to be concerned with the vendors table and the invoices table at first. Vendors and invoices. Okay. Let's go look at what is in the vendors table. If I drop this guy down, I have an option here to look at the columns of that table. And I see that, oh my goodness, I have a vendor ID. What is that? PK. What is that? Primary key. I also have vendor name. I see he's an integer, and of course he cannot be null. Now, I have vendor name, vendor address, address to, city, state, zip code, phone, contact last name, contact first name. I have a default terms ID, and if you look at this one, I have a default account number, and that is a foreign key. So let's just keep that in mind, that this is what I have in the vendors. So I've got a name, and I have a primary key, name, address, a couple of address lines, city, state, zip, phone, last name, first name, and a couple of other things that we're not going to worry too much about right now. Let's go up to the invoices table and let's look at the columns. Invoice ID, and look, I have a vendor ID that is a, didn't mean to do that, a vendor foreign key. The vendor ID is a foreign key. What is that? That takes me to the vendors table. I have an invoice number, an invoice date, an invoice total, which is currency or money, payment total, credit total, terms ID, invoice due date, payment date. So these are dates. And we won't worry too much about the terms ID right now. That is another foreign key. So I have two foreign keys. But for right now, we're going to mostly be concerned with the invoices table and the vendors table. That'll be our two that we're going to be working with in this module and probably the next. If I want to see the data in either of those tables or any of these tables really, let's start with vendors. I will right click and I will say edit top 200 rows. Bingo. And I get to see the data. And I can scroll back and forth. I can scroll up and down. I can change data. So if I change this particular one from California to TX, it is changed. This is a graphical user interface on the data. I can add a row at the bottom, but we're not going to do that because this isn't a class about using the graphical user interface. I'm just pointing it out to you so that if you want to know what is in the table to check your data, you can see it. You can see the layout and the data. Byman, you're the only one here tonight. Questions?
Yes. Okay, first question is, when I saw that vendors table and the column names, there was a foreign key which says account service or invoice accounts or something.
Let me look.
Yeah.
Default account number?
Yes. How does
that takes you to another table.
All right.
Right now, that's all I'm going to say about it. We can go look at it. There is another table set up, and there's a constraint on this table that says default account number, foreign key, default account number, references, another table, and I have a feeling that that is going to be the GL accounts, Global Ledger Accounts table. But we won't worry about that right now. We'll get to that. You have to learn the way that the tables are arranged because you cannot work in a database without knowing something about them. Right now, we're only concerned with two tables.
Okay. Now the question is on the no, that was the vendors table, not the vendors.
Okay, I'm in the vendors.
No, which one? The other one we just saw.
Invoices.
Invoices. Okay, invoices. If you click on that, open. Yeah.
It has two foreign keys, I believe, but the one we're interested in is the foreign key that takes me to the vendor ID.
Okay, should there not be a reference keyword there?
You cannot see the SQL. If you want to see the SQL, we would have to go to, wait, look,
it will be in the SQL.
It will be in the createap.sql. If I open that and look at it, contact updates, I'm looking for the create table invoice. There's vendors, create table invoices. I have terms ID here.
Okay.
Here we go right here. Constraint, invoices, terms, FK, foreign key, terms ID, references, terms, terms ID. I'm not interested really in that one. This is the one I'm more interested in that takes me to the vendors table.
Okay.
Because a vendor has 0 or more invoices associated. Let's not worry about that terms ID.
No, okay. But the lab work that we have, there we have to put this kind of code in it because we'll create a foreign key there.
When I mostly went with the creating tables to show you how a foreign key was created. So there has been one created. I'm now seeing the result of that in my graphical user interface.
Okay. No, I was talking about the lab work on module 3 and 4. The two tables, one is the pets, one is the owners.
Yes, you would be able to see those under your Scratch DB. So if I were to go over to Scratch, okay, I'm going to push this one down so it doesn't get in my way. You see Scratch DB?
Okay.
If I drop him open, go to tables, I see owners and pets.
Okay.
If I open the owners and look at the columns, I see owner ID, name, address, phone number, the primary key. Okay. If I close him and drop down pets and look at columns, I see the primary key, but down at the bottom, I see a foreign key.
Okay. Now, since it's in the lab, what I was doing when I was coding that SQL, I was checking for that file, a table. If it is there, I was deleting it and recreating it.
Yes, and that's, yes, that is a good way to do a script.
So in that case, I will not be picking up the field IDs or columns the way you have. I'm kind of arranging them a little bit differently. That's another question I have.
You can do that. Let me see if I have one here.
Because since I didn't know that you already have pets and owners in Scratch DB, I thought we were creating it.
You are. You create it. When you say this is somebody else's. Let me close that off. This is somebody else's code.
Oh, I see.
Use Scratch because I wanted you to use this name, but had you used any other name, would have been fine.
No, I use Scratch DB.
That's fine. I can just run it. If you'd used something else, then I have to change it, but that's not a problem. I can do that. Okay, this says if it exists, drop it.
Yeah, I did it.
If owners exists, drop it. And now create it again.
Okay, I didn't put in the go because I was putting it as one.
You should have the go around the create. So here's the create. So go, create. And this person did not put the go in. At the end, it is good practice. So this is the create statement right here. Go, create, go.
Okay, but my
create. Wait, let me finish. Create, and then he should have had. He didn't. I'll have to go. So go brackets create statements. That's the only time you need it.
Okay.
Okay. I'll let me have a save here. I think I'm in Notepad actually. Save, okay. Okay, we'll get back to that. Okay. All righty, I'm going to go back to my module. So this is called select from where. And I want to get some stuff from one table. Right now we are only using one table. So the statement starts off with select. Select what? From, these are reserved words, by the way. What table? Where, this is optional. What condition does it meet? And finally, an order by. And it says which fields do not have to be in, they're just in the table. I can order by. Let's look at an example. This one says select. Select what? Well, there are 3 fields from the vendor's table. You can go over there and see that they are vendor ID, vendor name, vendor city. Notice my capitalization. When I am writing a reserved SQL word, I write it in all caps. SQL is not sensitive to that. You can write it any way you want. So these guys I write in a mixed case, sometimes called camel case. That is my choice. You can write it any way you like, with any kind of capitulation you like. I recommend using a lowercase or a mix. Do not put spaces. No spaces. See, I got a red line.
Okay.
No spaces. Now, it is possible, and the book says, to put spaces if you put square brackets there. I don't ever want to see this. Okay, what's going on? We're not going to do that. It doesn't like it even then. So no spaces. We're going to use all letters, and there can be numbers. It is legal to use an underscore, but I prefer just a series of letters. It's okay to be terse. You don't have to go into writing a book there, but when you choose your names, never spaces.
Okay.
Or special characters. You can have digits in it as long as it starts with a letter. From,
Okay.
the table. Where, vendor state, this is how you write not equal to. Vendor state does not equal to California. Order by, vendor city. Now, the first time I run it, I'm going to have to run this piece. So when I highlight it and I say execute, I get it completed. If I just say execute and nothing is selected, it executes the whole file. But all I did was execute the use APDB. You have to do that one first, or the whole file, whichever you like. Now, I can come down here, just selecting the piece I want. I want to run this. I say execute, and notice that I got the vendor ID, the vendor name, and the vendor city. All of these are not in California. I have 47 rows that are not in California. Boston, to the best of my knowledge, isn't in California. I guess I should have put the state in there, but I didn't. And they're sorted by vendor city. Questions? This is the simple select from where. The only thing that is required is these two right here, these 2 rows. Select from the table. If I execute this, I will get 122 rows, including California, because I didn't have this where clause included. Is that making any sense?
Yes, yes.
Very well. I'm going to move on then. Renaming the columns. It's possible to rename the columns. And in this case, if you really want spaces in them, that's your business. I don't like it. I never do it. select vendor ID as, bracket it in square brackets, and give it a new name.
So this is the column heading.
This will be the column heading, so this is an alias.
Okay.
Vendor name as, it's got a space. Vendor city as, and I chose a quick name for this one, Foo. From vendors, where vendor, it's the same as the last one, except notice that this one I said order by Foo. Note the rename. Questions?
Okay, so if we rename the field, so when you do order by.
Yes, I'm about to come to that.
Okay.
So I say order by Foo. Now, I have to bring something up here. Look at this order of evaluation. Notice first, second, third, fourth. If I give it a name on the third line, it can be used on the fourth. Excuse me. But it cannot be used in the first or the second. Okay?
How did this
is
understand this.
What?
I didn't understand first, third, second, fourth.
Well, this is how SQL statement is evaluated.
Right.
The first line will be the from. So the first thing it does, it goes and gets the table.
Okay.
The second thing it does, it looks at the where, and it decides what rows to get. The third thing it does is it decides which fields to get. Here is where it gets its alias. So I cannot do where Foo is city, where Foo equals Fresno. Okay, let's go down and look at it. Here is one that will not work. Select. Notice that vendor city is renamed. I've only done that one just to show, okay, so I've renamed it. From vendors, where Foo does not equal Fresno. This one is not going to work. When I try to do it, I will get a error message that's on line 34. Invalid column name. Why? Because I've renamed it on the third execution, but I'm trying to use that name in the second. Now, up to now, you are used to programming. Let's see, you have programmed in Java?
Yes, I did check the Java last semester.
Very, very well. You are used to things happening in order.
Yes.
In SQL, they do not happen in the same order you're used to. So this is your new order in terms of a select statement, and there will be some differences here from the programming you're used to doing. Notice that we are specifying what we want our answer to look like, not how to get it.
This is kind of optimizing it.
The system very well optimizes.
Okay, now how did you make it to display those third, fourth?
Oh, I just typed them in.
Oh, you typed. Okay.
That's just my typing.
Okay.
This is a text file. Here's another one that won't work. This one actually will work in hours. If I execute this one, it will work. Notice it worked. The thing of it is, on the third line, I have renamed vendor city, and then I have used the original name on the fourth line. In many platforms, you will find that you have to use the alias.
Okay.
So I would not be able to use vendor city because vendor city would be what we call shadowed by the new name. In our system, it works.
Okay. Now I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, if I have a complex SQL statement, Now, is there some place I can learn the order of their execution? Like
Right here. This is the order of their execution.
Okay.
Let's worry about a simple one first, and then we'll get to more complex ones in the next class.
Okay.
We'll get to complex ones before we get out of here. Trust me.
Okay. No, I was thinking that.
So this is a simple select from one table. We're going to get next module. We're going to get 2 tables and 3 and 4 tables. So right now this is as simple as it gets. Let's worry about the simple one.
Okay. No, not until you told me that from is done first, then you do the where.
Well, I told you that because I think it's important. The textbook does not.
Absolutely, it is important, but it's not in the book, though.
The textbook does not highlight that. I'm trying to. I mean, if all I'm going to do is sit here and read the book to you, then we're wasting our time.
No, right, exactly.
You're supposed to be able to read the book, and I'm trying to amplify the book.
That's what I'm expecting.
Okay, very well. Here is a more complicated one. This one's coming from the invoices table. I told you I was going to stick to 2 tables that we're only going to use. I'm going to use invoices and vendors today. Remember that one has an invoice ID. And if you forget, go over there and look. Invoice total. Now look at this statement. Invoice total minus credit total plus payment total in parentheses, and I give that a name. Balance due. Order by balance due. I'm saying no problem. We'll come to that problem here. Okay, I'm going to highlight it and execute. Notice I've got a lot of zeros. Scroll down. And boy, I got a whole bunch of balance dues or zero. Oh, there's some that aren't. So this person has a balance due and so on, a few of them that do. Let's get rid of those zeros. I'm only really interested in these guys down here that 103 and through 114. Let's get rid of these zeros. Okay. This one will not work. Select the same thing, invoice total minus credit total plus payment total as balance due. By the way, get used to this calculation. You're going to see it coming back over and over and over again in the first part of this class. Okay. Invoice total, how much do you owe, minus how many credits do you have, plus whatever payment you have. That quantity is subtracted from the invoice total. That is your balance due.
The credit total and the payment total, those are all fields in the invoice table.
Yes. I'm going to talk more about that towards the end of the class.
Okay.
From invoices, where balance due is greater than 0. Now, if I take this comment out, notice that he goes red. It doesn't always mean it's an error, by the way. But this one says invalid column name. Why is that an invalid column name?
Because it's not a column name in the table itself.
Right, but I can go order by balance due. Why? It goes to this thing right here.
Yeah.
First, second, third, fourth. First, second, this has not happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
Third, now it's happened, and finally here I can do it fine. I say copy and paste is your friend. Here is how you do that. Select, this is the same select from invoices, but I have to say where. I have to go up here and copy this thing, paste it and say greater than 0. Now order by is fine. Now this one is going to work as soon as I can get it selected. And he works, and now I only have 12 rows that are the ones I want. This one will not work. As soon as I try to execute this one, he says, can't see, don't know what balance due is. So I'll comment him to shut him up.
Okay.
Questions?
No, I understood.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll get some more stuff in here besides that simple 1, 2, 3, 4. But right now, from is first, where is second, select is third, order by is last for now. Talk about between. Now, I'm going to go over here. Let's see. Select invoice ID, invoice total from invoices where invoice ID between 3 and 7. I'm going to go back over to the GUI and take a look at what I am expecting. Let's see. I want the invoices. Right click, edit top 200. Let's take a look at, excuse me, invoice ID. We're talking about this between 3 and 7. What is between 3 and 7?
So does that mean include 3 and 7?
That's a good question. Does it?
No.
What do you think between means?
No, it doesn't.
Very well, then I will agree with you that between should be 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
Let's go see what our system does with that. Let me get back there. Okay, select where it's between 3 and 7, and I'm going to execute, and I find out that it does, in fact, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For this reason, I do not like between, because it leads to some confusion. Instead, I prefer, it can become confusing. Instead, I think, then though the textbook doesn't mention this, but it includes 3, it includes 7, or sometimes, for example, when you're dealing with an array in programming, it includes the first one, but not the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's fix that. Instead of between, let's use this. Select the same thing from the same table where invoice ID is greater than or equal to 3 and invoice ID is less than or equal to 7. Now, how you write that is your business. If you want it to be strictly between, you say greater than 3 and less than 7. Or you mix them and match them as you please. You are in a stronger position here.
Okay.
Do you understand this,
Yes.
this idea? Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. Equal to is single equal. Greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, about the same. Let's see. Not equal to. Typically in SQL, you use what we call the diamond inequality, which is less than or greater than. But if you are just dyed-in-the-wool Java or C programmer, you may also use that one, the exclamation point equal. It also works. It's part of SQL. I recommend, suggest, request using this one because that's SQL. This one was added in 1992.
Okay.
So you can actually, it's perfectly legal to use either one of them today. All right, next one's important. None of these work with a null value. For example, vendor address, if I were to go look at my Object Explorer, vendors, right click, edit top 200. Let's take a look. Notice that the vendor address to has some that are not null, lots of them that are null. I would do something else with this table, but we'll talk about that later. Okay. Well, what if I wanted to see those that were not equal to null? Vendor name vendors, where it is not equal to null. Execute. I don't get anything. Okay, I want to know the ones that are equal to null then. I know I have some of those. I get nothing. Greater than, none of these work with null.
Okay.
We have to use the is or is not operator. Select
Okay.
vendor name from vendors where vendor address is not null. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
because the computer, null is not a value.
That's true. Null, well, in C or Java, you can use null, for example, a pointer. You could say P is not equal to null, would work, but the SQL is just different. So SQL handles null a little bit differently than C or Java. I think you can say, I think null will come back as false in Java.
Okay.
So if you say if and you give it an object name, it will check to see if it's null. Here we have to say where vendor address is, we have to use this is operator, is or is not null. So when I execute this guy, I'm going to get the ones that are not null. I get 19 rows. So these 19 have a vendor address too. Questions? Duplicates. Let's select the state. All the states from vendors, I should get, I think, 112 rows or 100, what is it, 114? 122. So I get all of these rows, lots of California. Guess where our publisher lives? In California. And this is the same thing. I'm going to say select all from vendors. All is the default. We don't usually write all. We just say select vendor state from vendors. It means all of them. Okay, if I want to suppress duplicates, I say select distinct vendor state from vendors. They used to use the word unique, but it's been replaced by distinct. Unique doesn't work anymore. So if I execute this, see, this last one, I got 122 rows. If I execute this one, I'm only going to get 22 rows because I have 22 different states, distinct.
Okay.
What do you notice about the output? A, C, D, F, I, K, M.
Order by.
It is ordered, yes. Do not count on that.
Oh.
If you want it ordered, you must say order by.
Okay.
It's just an accident that it's ordered. Can I move on?
Yes.
Okay, select distinct top 5. Top 5 of the vendor state. I do not like using top, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, why I don't. From vendors, order by vendor state descending. So I'm going to get the 5 that are at the very top of it. When I say exit, I get WI, what is that? Wisconsin, Virginia, Texas, Tennessee, and Pennsylvania. Now, why don't I like using top? This violates the idea of we're only supposed to choose them with the where, with the content, not with the position. But it's there, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about that I don't like it, and anytime I can get around it, I won't use it. But it's there, it's in the book, I'm going to talk about it.
So if we want to do that, not using top, so you have to use a record number greater than
no, we don't. Well, yeah, there's ways of doing it. I only want the top 5. There are ways of doing it that we will learn later. Right now, the book talks about this, and everybody in the world uses it. So I'm going to talk about it. It's part of SQL. It is pure SQL, even though I think it violates the idea of a record is accessed by content only. This is accessing a record by position. Oh, well, sometimes I just have to get over stuff. Okay. Move on briefly.
Okay.
Page 93. This syntax is obsolete. I'm just going to mention that. How did I do it up here? I said as. So how should I have done that better? This is the preferred way to do it. This is obsolete. This is back in the 70s and 80s, the way we did it. This is the new syntax. Okay, just page 93. Don't worry about it. Just you can skip that page. Next page. String concatenation. We say, and if you've taken Java, you probably know the term overloaded.
Yeah.
Okay. The addition sign is overloaded. And that means that it means one thing when you put it between integers. It means something different when you put it between varchar or char. When you put it between varchar or char, it puts them together. So what am I saying? Go ahead.
Concatenation.
Concatenation, yes, indeed. I'm saying take the first name, put a space after it, take the last name. Always, one thing I need to mention up here while I'm at it, anytime you have a calculated field like this one, always rename that field. The rest of them, I don't care. This one, rename, because it won't have a name if you don't give it one. Now, why don't I care? Because a SQL script is a data pump. This name will go up the stream. Very seldom does the end user ever get the output of an SQL statement. It is sent up to a web page that is going to process it further. We're just giving them a bunch of data. They can put their own name on it any way they like. I don't care if you call them X, Y, and Z. Give this one a name. Because if all you do is say, let me comment that. I'm going to run this code now. I'm just going to run this piece of it. Because if I try that, it won't work anymore. Now, see this top right here where it says no column name? I'm pointing to it. You don't want that. It has to have a column name. I don't care if you name it X or foo. Well, I don't know. Balanced do works pretty well for me. I think it should probably have meaning. Now, when you run it, it has a name for the next thing in the pipeline that gets these data. I'm not going to get, these don't go to the end user. They're not ready yet. They're going to get processed further. So your C program is going to get them, or your web page is going to get them, and we'll process them further and make them nice and pretty for the end user. You can put your own names on them at that point. Going down, 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 down. Okay. When I put two strings together, I have this. If I just stopped right here, It would work. I would see the first name and the last name, but notice I have no column name. This is bad. Always want a caller name. I have the first name space last name. That's what I wanted. But I always must have a column name. So always use as. Time for me to talk about one other thing. In SQL, it will allow you to drop that word as. So basically, I have a calculation here, a space, and then the name. If I execute this, it will work, and it will give it the name. I do not, in this class, we will use the full syntax. We will not drop the as, even though you can. Once you get out of my class, you do as you please. In my class, we will always say as. Fair enough?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Now, when we write this select statement, it goes to the printer, right?
No, we don't know where it goes right now. We're not worried about where it goes. Okay. We are pumping data out for somebody, and we are retrieving data. Excuse me, I got a tickle cough. Okay, I'm back. It could go to the printer. It could go to a file. It could go to another computer program. We're going to see that there is a whole programming language associated with this, and that SQL is just a little piece of that larger programming language. So SQL is kind of like the engine in a car. If all you have is the engine, well, you have a nice engine, but you can't do much with it. Okay, SQL is that engine. So I'm teaching now how to use that, and then later that engine gets dropped into a car.
Okay, I guess you answered my question, but still I'm asking. So is there a way I can suppress those column names?
Suppress?
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean. Here?
Yeah, I mean, it will print all the data, but there will be no column names. So
well, yeah, we haven't talked about print. I don't know. Let me try it. It's giving me an error here. There is a way. I would have to appeal to something from the next class.
Okay.
You'd have to step through it and print each line one at a time. No, we're not going to do that right now. I don't really care where it goes, Byman. It doesn't. Okay. It doesn't matter where it goes right now. It just goes into this screen. Now, what can you do with this? Well, you can copy, and you can paste it over into your spreadsheet, and print it from there.
Yeah, I can use another program to read it without the headings.
Yeah, well, you just do the copy, or you can say copy with headers, and you drop it into your Excel or your word processor or something and print it. I really don't care what you do with it. Right now, I'm mainly interested in just getting the information.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
We're not going there because that's not part of I don't tell you what to do with it.
Okay.
We just get the information, and then somebody else is going to make it really pretty. Arithmetic operators, you're probably used to these guys.
Yes.
Okay, I won't go into them in detail. Multiplication, division, and mod is division. Come before addition or subtraction. Not a big deal. Okay, 5 times 3, we probably figured that is 15. 5 divided by 3, what are you expecting?
It depends on how 5 and 3 is 1.
Quotient only, 1. Integer, integer, 1, just like Java. Modulo 5 divided by 3, what is the remainder?
2.
2. Okay, I'm not going to run these. Add and subtract work like you'd expect. Modulo has the same precedence as division, and you cannot mod by 0. We're going to skip pages 98 and 99. Well, we're coming back to them later. Not and an or. You must pass the, this isn't the way I have it, but this is an example. It's an example. It says you must pass the final and pass test 1 or pass test 2. Let's write that as pass, let's write that as final and T1 or T2. Okay?
Okay.
The way this will evaluate, it will put the and together first, then apply the or. So this is either true or false. But if the or is true, the entire statement will be true.
Yes.
Okay, so you're used to that. What I probably meant was you had to pass the final and one of the others. Here's an example. Find all vendors where the vendor state is California and default terms ID is a 3 or a 4. And so somebody comes along and they write this. And this says vendor state from vendors, vendor state California, and default terms ID is 3 or default terms ID is 4. When I run this, I'm going to find that I get states that are not California. Why? Because this default ID, terms ID of 4 will pull it to true. So I get a New Jersey. I get a Massachusetts has a 4. I get one other. I get a Nevada with a terms ID of 4. What we probably meant to write was this, where it's in parentheses. So sometimes you have to have the parentheses. The vendor stays California and work inside. We're going to skip pages 120 and 121, and that's going to conclude us for tonight.
Can I ask you a question about the lab work?
You can. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end the meeting, and then and you'll disconnect for right now. About your computer or about the lab?
Okay, just a little bit about the lab. If I change the order of the fields in my table, I have to change your data when we do the insert.
No, I don't see why. If you change the order of the fields, that's the good thing about the insert statement. The order of the fields that you give it when you give it the field list is the order in which they come in the values.
Okay.
So you match the order. So if you say insert into foo table, fee, fi, fo, fum, then down the first one is fee, second one is fi, fo, and fum. Okay. If you change it to fi, fum, fee, fo, then you have to change the order of that values list. If some textbooks just have you say insert values without the field list, in that case you have to know the order. But if you use the values list, you do not have to know the order. Go ahead.
Okay, understood. That question is answered.
Okay.
Now, if you want to get my computer going.
Very well. I'm going to exit the recording now, and that's going to disconnect the Zoom session, and then I'll restart another one, and we'll bring up your computer.
Okay, great.
Okay. I don't think it'll take us a long time, so I'm going to say stopping the share. And I'm going to say ending the meeting now at 7:11 p.m. Nighty night. We're going to come back to a lab session.